Hello, fourth graders. Welcome to lesson 6.8, Compare and Order Fractions. Please pause to write the lesson number and title in your notebook. Today's lesson objective is I can compare and order fractions. Remember, yesterday we compared them, so today we're going to add ordering. Please pause again to write the lesson objective in your notebook. All right, fourth graders, let's read the Unlock the Problem. It says, Jody has equal size bins at the recycling center. She filled 3/5 of the bins with plastics, 1/12 of the bins with paper, and 9/10 of the bins with glass. And here's our question. We want to know which bin is most full. So we need to order our fractions and know which one is smallest, which one's middle, and which one's largest, so that we can say that which bin is most full. So on the side it told us here, underline what we need to find. Well, we did that already, and circle the fractions. Oh man, we're on top of it. All right, example 1. We're going to locate these 3 fractions on a number line in order to help us compare where they go. So if we think 9/10, let's start there. 9/10 is almost a 1 whole because 10/10 would be 1 whole. So we're going to put 9/10 farthest to the right because we think it's the largest. It's almost 1. Okay, now if we think about the other ones, just to kind of compare on the opposite end, 9/10 is almost a whole, but 1/12, 1/12 is just tiny. It's just one piece of 12. So that's going to go all the way down to the left, the smallest, 1/12. All right, which leaves us only one number left. Our last number is 3/5. And if you think half of 5 is about 2.5, and 3 is pretty close to that. So it's larger than half, but still close. So 3/5 is going to go right here towards the middle. All right, so just to kind of think and compare to 1/2 like we did before, we think that 3/5 is about 1/2. It's pretty close, but it's still larger because half of 5 would be 2.5, and 3 is half. 3 is larger than 2.5. So 3/5 is larger than half. But if we look at 1/12, 1/12 is pretty small. It is less than half. And 9/10 was almost 1 whole number. So it is more than half. So since we know that 3/5 and 9/10 are both greater than half, and we know that 1/12 is less than half, then that helps us label them where they go. So we can also use some compatible fractions, some common denominators to show, like we have yesterday and in our previous lessons, to compare these two. So let's look at the numbers 3/5 and 9/10. And we're going to use 10 as a common denominator because 10 can go both into 5 and into 10. So let's look at our first number. We're going to change 3/5 into tenths. So in order to make 3/5 into something over 10, we need to multiply, there's our number, 3/5. We need to multiply by something. So 5 times what gives me 10? All right, well that would be 2. 5 times 2 is 10. And then whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So if I multiply the bottom by 2, I'm going to multiply the top by 2. And 3 times 2 is 6. So then I have 6/10. And now I can compare 3/5 and 9/10 and have them in the same denominator, so it's easy to tell. So which one's bigger, 6/10 or 9/10? Well, we know that 9 is bigger than 6. So 6/10 is smaller than 9/10. So given the fractions how they gave it to us above, we know that 3/5 is smaller than 9/10. So then we put those on our number line as well. So if we're going to put them in order from least to greatest, our smallest one would be 1/12. Our middle one would be 3/5. And our largest number, which is what we were looking for, remember the bin that is most full, our largest would be 9/10. So the fraction with the greatest value is 9/10. And that means 9/10, that was the bin with glass. So the bin with glass is most full. Down at the bottom it says, compare the distance between 3/5 and 0. So if you look at your number line, 3/5 in the middle, 0 is all the way to the left, and the distance between 9/10 and 0. Okay, 9/10 is almost to the 1, so it's way far away from 0. And it says, what can we conclude about the relationship of 3/5 and 9/10 looking at the number line? Well, anything that's farther to the left of a number line is smaller. So we could tell, based on their relationship on the number line, that 9/10 is bigger than 3/5. So let's write that. 9/10 is bigger than 3/5 because it is farther up the number line. Make sure everything that I've written, you've written as well. All right, let's practice one more time. In example 2, we have 7/10, 1/3, 7/12, and 8/10, all that we need to compare. So let's look at step 1. It says we want to compare each of them to a half. So let's stop and think about what's bigger than half. So let's think one by one. So if we look at 7/10, well, half of 10 would be 5. So 7 is bigger than 5. So that would be in our ones that are greater than 1/2. So 7/10 is going to go right here. Let's look at our next fraction, 1/3. Okay, well, half of 3 would be 2, and 1 is less than that. It'd be like 1.5, really, but 1 is still less than that. So that's going to go in our less than 1/2 row. So 1/3. Okay, our next one is 7/12. Half of 12 is 6. So 7 is more than 6. So 7/12 is more than half. Okay, here's our last fraction, 8/10. 8/10, well, half of 10 is 5, and 8 is more than that. So we know that it's more than half. So 8/10 is going to go here. So that tells us that the fraction with the least amount, the fraction that is the smallest, there's only one less than half, and that's 1/3. So our fraction with the smallest amount is 1/3. So we're going to find it on our number line. It's the only one less than 1/2. So 1/3. Okay, but now we still have 3 fractions we need to decide which one's larger. We have 7/10, 7/12, and 8/10. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to look at the 2 7s, because we can look at numerators and decide which one's bigger. So if I have 7 pieces of 10, or if I have 7 pieces of 12, my pieces of 10 are going to be larger. So 7/10 is larger than 7/12, because even though I have the same number of pieces, my pieces in my tenths are bigger pieces. So each one of those 7 pieces is going to take up more of my whole number. All right, and then we can look at them with a common denominator. So now I have 7/10 and 8/10. Well, we know that 8/10 is bigger than 7/10. So that will help us order them from least to greatest. So we know that 1/3 is the smallest number. Then we said 7/12 was smaller here, so our next number is 7/12. Then we looked at 7/10 and 8/10, and we said that 7/10 was less than 8/10, which is our last number. So we can write them in order down here at the bottom. 1/3 is less than 7/12 is less than 7/10 is less than 8/12. So now we have all of our fractions in order from least to greatest. And actually, I just noticed this should be a 1/10 and this should be a 1/10. I'm sorry for that mistake. Please make sure that you have everything written down before you finish this lesson. We will continue on with the Try This section tomorrow in class. You're almost finished. When you're sure you understand this lesson, go back to your teacher's website and complete the exit slip. See you tomorrow.